The door closed behind me with a sound like iron dragged across stone. Heavy. Final. My name is Enrico, and this place was given to me as my duty, though it felt less like work and more like a sentence. The air carried incense and dust, but beneath it lingered something older, metallic, like the stench of blood that had dried and then returned with the damp. The corridor stretched out in front of me, lined with 6 wooden confessionals. They leaned like crooked teeth, each marked with a number burned into the door. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th stood at the far end, darker than the rest, as if the light itself recoiled from touching it. I stepped forward. The floor groaned beneath my weight, uneven stone pressing back through my shoes. Dust swirled around my ankles. A single bulb above flickered and hummed, more shadow than glow, casting everything in a trembling half-light. Each time it buzzed, the shadows jumped like restless things trying to escape their corners. My hand brushed the wall. The wood was damp and cold. Crosses had been carved into the doors of the booths, but time had split them, each one cracked open like a wound. The corridor smelled of rot and rust. My chest tightened with every step, lungs shrinking against air too heavy to breathe. A slab of stone hung on the wall near the entrance, old, cracked, gray. The letters gouged into it were jagged, desperate, and yet they glimmered faintly as I drew closer. I read them carefully. They were rules, not guidance, not prayer, but law etched in warning. Rule 1. Do not look into the glass after midnight. Rule 2. If you hear confession from the second booth, answer with the words, "The Lord be with you." Rule 3. If the bell rings 3 times at 3 o'clock, kneel and recite the Lord's Prayer in reverse. Rule 4. Do not gaze through the slit of the 6th door. The words sank deeper into me than stone. My throat went dry. I could almost feel them pressing against the inside of my skull. It was as if they had been spoken directly into my ear. I stepped back, but the hallway had changed. The booth seemed closer now, leaning toward me. The exit behind me looked smaller, farther away, a square of black that no longer promised escape. I rubbed my hands together, but the chill clung. The skin of my palms felt thin. My fingers shook. This was not simple wood and dust. This place carried something else, something that remembered. I forced myself forward. The first booth loomed to my left. The wood at the base was dark, stained deep into the grain. I bent closer. The smell hit me, iron, sharp and undeniable. My pulse skipped and I recoiled, wiping my hand against my coat, but the scent stayed, as if it had marked me. The light overhead sputtered. Darkness swallowed the corridor in a single blink. For a heartbeat I stood blind, my ears straining in silence. When the bulb flared back to life, the numbers on the doors seemed fresher, carved deeper, as though someone had cut them again in the dark. I tried the handle of booth number 1. Locked. The metal was cold enough to sting. I pulled back quickly. The second booth waited just beyond, its slit of wood like a watching eye. For a moment, I thought I heard fabric shifting inside. My breath froze. I listened. Nothing. My heart thudded against my ribs. The silence pressed harder, as if daring me to break it. The wall beneath my palm was slick, wet. I pulled my hand back and found it damp, shining under the bulb. I lifted it to my nose. Rust. Not water. My throat tightened. The shadows reached again, stretching across the floor, growing longer, even though the light above stayed the same. I turned to look at the stone slab once more. The rules glowed faintly. Not carved words anymore, but warnings alive on the surface. They stared back at me, as if waiting for me to forget them. I took one slow breath and whispered to myself, 4 rules, only 4. Keep them, and the night will pass. Break them, and... My voice faltered. I could not say the rest. I already knew. I walked further down the corridor, each step sinking into the silence like a nail driven into wood. My breath echoed against the walls, louder than it should have been, as though the air itself wanted to remind me I was not welcome. I stopped in front of the third booth. The number carved deep into the wood looked fresh, sharper than the rest. I reached out, tracing it with my fingertip, then pulled back fast. The groove was warm. I wiped my hand on my coat, refusing to look at the slit in the door. The bulb above me buzzed. It flared white, then dimmed again, leaving the booth in a shroud of trembling shadow. I forced my eyes forward, down the hall, to the slab of stone where the rules hung. My lips moved silently, repeating them. Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4, my lifeline, my only map. The corridor pressed in on me. The booth seemed taller now, leaning closer, their wooden faces bent toward me like silent judges. My pulse throbbed in my neck. My tongue was dry as paper. I moved toward the fourth booth, the one in the middle. The door was split down the grain. A faint reflection gleamed in the crack. My stomach twisted. The rule carved into my mind pulsed like a warning. Do not look into the glass after midnight. I did not know if it was midnight yet. Time had dissolved here. My watch ticked on my wrist, but the hands had stopped, frozen at 11:59. I clenched my fist and looked away from the glimmer. The fifth booth was silent, nothing but black between the slats. The wood smelled of mold. A damp draft slid out from the gap, brushing across my skin like a hand. I shivered and stepped back. Then my eyes found the sixth door, far down the corridor, darker than any of the others. My body tensed, my chest tightened. Even from here, I felt it pulling. The slit in the door was wide enough for a shadow to lean through. The rule was clear. Do not gaze through the slit of the sixth door. My eyes burned with the urge to do exactly that. Curiosity gnawed. Fear chained me still. I turned away, back to the stone slab. The words gleamed faintly, as though lit from behind. I whispered them again, forcing my voice to steady. Rule 1. Do not look into the glass after midnight. Rule 2. If you hear confession from the second booth, answer with the words, "The Lord be with you." Rule 3. If the bell rings 3 times at 3 o'clock, kneel and recite the Lord's Prayer in reverse. Rule 4. Do not gaze through the slit of the sixth door. Each syllable dug deeper into me. The rules were not reminders, they were commands. Commands that felt older than the stone itself. I pressed my palm against the slab. The surface was cold, but beneath the cold throbbed something like a heartbeat. I pulled back quickly. The corridor seemed longer again, the booths receding into darkness. I turned. The exit was still there, but it no longer felt like escape. It felt like another door, waiting to close. I wiped sweat from my forehead, though the air was cold. My breath clouded in front of me. The silence thickened again, pressing against my ears until I thought I would go deaf from it. I took one more step toward the center of the hall. The bulb sputtered, then flared. For a heartbeat, the entire corridor lit like daylight. I froze. In that instant, the booths were not empty. Shapes sat inside them, silhouettes of men and women, heads bowed, hands clasped in prayer. My heart slammed against my ribs, then the light dimmed again, and the booths were vacant. I swallowed hard, my throat burned. I backed away, but my feet stuck to the stone as if the ground itself wanted to hold me in place. My chest ached with every breath. I tried to speak, to remind myself aloud that I was still here, still breathing, still Enrico. But the name caught in my mouth, heavy as lead. A faint sound broke the silence. A breath, not mine, not from any booth ahead of me, but from behind. A slow, deliberate exhale. I turned, my neck stiff, heart hammering. The corridor was empty. The exit stood open. But the air still moved, brushing against my cheek like someone had leaned close enough to whisper. I staggered back toward the center of the corridor. My eyes darted from booth to booth. The second door seemed darker now. It slit wider, like it had opened the smallest degree. I clenched my fists. The rule carved itself into me again. If you hear confession from the second booth, answer with the words, "The Lord be with you." My mouth was dry, my throat tight. I whispered to myself, rehearsing the phrase, though no voice had come yet. Just silence. Just waiting. I leaned against the wall, chest rising and falling too fast. The bulb flickered again. The corridor swam in shadows, and then, as the light stuttered, the second booth gave a single low creak, the sound of wood shifting. As if someone inside had leaned forward, I froze, waiting, every nerve drawn tight. The air seemed to hold its breath with me. Then came the first sound, a faint murmur, a voice, a woman. It was the sound of weeping. The sound of weeping seeped through the slit of the second booth. Soft at first, broken breaths pulled through wood, fragile as silk tearing in the dark. My skin prickled. I pressed my back to the wall, eyes fixed on the crack in the door. The voice wavered, then shaped itself into words. A confession, faint, trembling. "I lied," she whispered. "I lied to him. I stole. I betrayed." The words clawed at the silence. I shut my eyes, trying to ignore the sound. But the rules pressed into me like nails. Rule 2. If you hear confession from the second booth, answer with the words, "The Lord be with you." My throat tightened. The voice grew louder. The sobs shook, then steadied into rhythm. Each word dragged with pain, each word seared like a brand. "I lied. I stole. I betrayed." Her breath broke into sobs again, and then she said my name, clear, sharp. "Enrico." My stomach turned. I stumbled backward, my heel scraping against stone. The voice followed, soft and merciless. "You lied. You stole. You betrayed." My pulse roared in my ears. I shook my head, whispering no, no, no. But the voice would not stop. She wept and accused in the same breath, spilling truths I had buried so deep I had almost convinced myself they were gone. The bulb above me flickered, shadows sliding across the floor. The booth loomed closer, though my feet had not moved. My lips cracked. I forced them apart. "The Lord be with you." The words rasped out, broken, thin, but the booth fell silent. The sobs stopped. Only my breath filled the corridor, ragged and desperate. I leaned against the wall, heart hammering. My lungs felt raw. I wanted to leave, to run, to claw my way back to the exit. But the exit was no longer a door. It was only black. Then the voice returned, softer, deeper, not sobbing now, not pleading, calm, knowing. "You killed." The words froze me. My blood drained to ice. The booth creaked. The slit widened, just enough for shadow to spill across the floor. I staggered back, my hand scraping against the stone slab of rules. The cold bit into my palm, anchoring me as the voice rose again. "You killed Enrico." The shadows stretched farther, reaching toward my feet. I pressed harder against the stone, whispering the rules under my breath, clinging to them as if they could hold the dark at bay. Rule 1. Do not look into the glass after midnight. Rule 2. Answer the voice. Rule 3. If the bell rings, the voice cut me off, rising to a cry. "You killed her." The bulb flared white. For a single heartbeat, the booth was not empty. Behind the slats, I saw a face, pale, hollow, streaked with tears, eyes wide with grief and yet staring straight into me. Valentina. Her mouth moved, but the sound came not from her lips, but from the walls, from the air itself. Her confession was my confession. Her weeping was my guilt. My legs buckled. I pressed my hand harder to the stone. But the rules bled and blurred under my touch. The letters swam like ink in water. The booth slammed shut from within. The sound cracked through the corridor, rattling the bulb above. My breath stopped. Silence returned, but it was thicker now, heavier, full of words unspoken. I tried to step back, but my body would not obey. My feet locked to the stone. My chest rose and fell too fast. The bulb sputtered again. For a flash, the other booths were no longer empty. Shadows knelt inside, heads bowed, rows of silent figures praying, their lips moving soundlessly. My head spun. When the light dimmed again, the booths were vacant, but the sound remained. A low murmur, the echo of prayers that did not end. I clutched my chest, trying to steady my breath. The rules whispered in my mind, but they were drowned now by her words. You killed. The second booth groaned again. The slit widened just enough for a hand to push against it, pale, trembling, wet with blood. The fingers scraped along the wood, leaving a trail of red. I staggered back, colliding with the wall. The bulb blinked, then went out. Darkness swallowed everything. In the black, the voice spoke again, louder than before, filling every corner of the hall. You killed her. Enrico! My scream tore out of me, ragged and useless, vanishing into the dark. The darkness clung to me like wet cloth. I gasped, dragging air into my lungs, but every breath carried the taste of rust. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs. I clawed at the wall, fingers scraping stone, trying to feel my way forward. The bulb above me flickered once, twice, then spat a weak glow. Shadows shivered back into form. My eyes darted along the corridor. The booths were closed again, silent, still. The hand that had pressed through the slit of the second booth was gone. Only a smear of red stained the wood. I turned, desperate to look anywhere else, and froze. A mirror hung crooked against the wall between the fourth and fifth booth. I swore it had not been there before. The glass was dark, stained, warped with age. My pulse thudded in my ears. Rule 1 burned through my skull. Do not look into the glass after midnight. But my eyes would not obey. They dragged toward the surface, pulled like iron to a magnet. At first, I saw myself, my face pale and sweating, eyes wide with fear. My chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. My hands shook, but the reflection did not tremble. My reflection stood still, too still. Its mouth curled slowly upward into a smile I did not make. I stumbled back, shoulders slamming into the wall. My reflection, no, not mine, stepped closer, pressing against the other side of the glass. Lucian. His skin looked like mine, but wrong, lit by something that was not the bulb above us. A glow burned beneath the surface, crimson, as if veins carried fire instead of blood. His eyes did not blink. Red light pulsed inside them, steady and patient. His smile widened, teeth too sharp, too many. I whispered my name, as if saying it would anchor me. Enrico. The reflection mouthed the same word, but no sound left its lips. Instead, the sound came from the corridor itself, low and heavy, vibrating the air. Enrico. The letters slid across the stone like snakes. I staggered backward, but the corridor shrank. The booths leaned closer. The mirror seemed larger now, stretching wider, taller, until it swallowed the wall. Lucian stood within it, no longer a reflection, but a figure trapped behind glass. His hands pressed against the surface, cracks spiderwebbed outward where his palms touched. I shouted, but my voice broke. My throat burned raw. The bulb above flared, filling the hall with harsh white light. For one awful second, Lucian was not alone. Dozens of faces pressed against the inside of the glass, pale and desperate, their mouths moving in silent screams. Then the bulb dimmed, leaving only Lucian. His smile never faltered. My knees buckled. I dropped against the stone, clutching my chest. My breath tore through me. My eyes darted to the slab of rules. They glowed faint, almost mocking. I tried to repeat them. Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4. My lips stumbled, trembling. The words felt weak now, paper against flame. Lucian tilted his head, studying me like prey. His hand lifted, fingers dragging slowly across the glass. With each stroke, the mirror cracked deeper. The sound splintered through the hall, sharp as breaking bones. I tried to look away. I squeezed my eyes shut, but even in the dark behind my eyelids, I saw him. The glow of his eyes burned into me. I forced myself up, legs shaking, body pressed against the opposite wall. I whispered again, louder this time, forcing the words out. "The Lord be with you." The mirror pulsed. Lucian's grin stretched wider. His voice finally came, soft and poisonous, echoing from the glass. "And also with you." The bulb burst overhead. Shards rained down, cutting into my skin. The hall plunged into black. Somewhere in that darkness, glass shattered. The sound of breaking glass still rang in my skull when the first bell tolled. Low, heavy. The walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. A second toll followed. Louder, longer. The sound pushed into my chest, rattling my bones. Then the third. The final note thundered through the corridor, deep as the voice of the earth. The air itself trembled. 3 bells, 3 o'clock. Rule. 3 burned through my mind. If the bell rings 3 times at 3 o'clock, kneel and recite the Lord's Prayer in reverse. I dropped to my knees. The stone bit into them. My hands shook as I pressed them together. My mouth moved, stumbling, forcing the sacred words backward, one by one. Our Father who art in heaven, twisted and broken, line by line, reversed until the prayer became something else. A song of unraveling. The moment the words left me, the air grew colder. My breath turned to mist. The corridor groaned. The booths creaked as if someone inside them shifted. Shadows slithered across the floor, twisting in patterns I could not name. They coiled around my knees, brushing my skin like hands. The stone slab behind me pulsed with faint light. The rules shimmered, alive, watching. I spoke faster, choking, each word more difficult than the last. The bulb above flickered back to life. For an instant, I saw them. Figures inside the booths, dozens, men, women, all kneeling, all praying. Their lips moved in perfect unison with mine, but their eyes were hollow, their faces pale, and when they spoke the words backward, their voices did not sound like prayer. They sounded like teeth grinding against stone. My chest heaved, my throat burned. I kept reciting, choking on every syllable. The prayer was almost complete when another sound joined in. A whisper, deep, wet, too close. Jonah. I knew his name without reason, without introduction. It throbbed in my skull as surely as the rules had. He knelt in the third booth, his silhouette swaying. His head jerked with every syllable, neck snapping at angles that should have broken bone. His voice spilled through the wood, cracked and wrong. He was praying with me, or for me, or against me. I could not tell. The corridor spun. The walls stretched higher, bending like ribs of a cage. The booths leaned closer, wood groaning, the sound of nails pulling from old boards. My voice broke. I forced the last line out, reversed and ruined. The words tore through my throat like glass. Silence fell. The cold deepened. The mist of my breath hung frozen in the air. The figures in the booths no longer moved. Heads bowed, hands still clasped, frozen in their false prayer. Jonah's booth creaked open an inch, just enough for his face to lean into the slit. I should not have looked, but my eyes dragged toward him, helpless. His skin sagged, wet and pale. His mouth opened wider than it should, the jaw unhinged. The words poured out, thick and broken, in the same voice that had joined my prayer, but he was not reciting anymore. He was laughing, low, ragged, mocking. I staggered to my feet, legs shaking. My knees bled where the stone had cut through skin. My breath came in broken gasps. The mirror on the wall lay shattered, pieces scattered across the floor. In every shard, Lucien's eyes still glowed, watching me from 100 angles. I pressed my back to the wall, staring down the corridor. The booths were silent again. The slab of stone gleamed faintly. Rule 3 still pulsed, carved in fire across my vision. But I had obeyed. I had done what it demanded. Still, the silence carried the echo of laughter. Jonah's laughter, swallowed by wood still crawling through the air. The bulb flickered once, twice, then steadied. The corridor waited. The silence after Jonah's laughter felt heavier than the sound itself. It pressed against my chest, filling every corner of the corridor. My legs trembled, but I forced myself forward, dragging one foot, then the other, as though the floor wanted to hold me down. The booths loomed taller now. Their shadows leaned into me, stretched long and crooked by the trembling bulb. My breath rasped, shallow, uneven. I reached the wall again, pressing my palm against the cold stone slab. The rules glowed faint, breathing like veins under skin. I whispered them again, voice hoarse. Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4. I clung to them like rope, but the sound that followed was not the rules. It was her voice. Enrico, not Valentina this time, not Jonah. A softer voice, warmer, though no less chilling. Sister Catherine. The name surfaced in my mind before the sound fully formed. My stomach clenched. My memory pulled at me, dragging me backward. I saw her as she had been. White habit, gentle hands folded across her chest, eyes full of calm sorrow. She had spoken to me once, years ago, when I had wandered too close to the chapel in my youth. Her voice was soft, but every word had carried weight. There is no sin that disappears, she had told me. Only sins that wait. The bulb flickered, and she was here now, standing at the far end of the corridor. Her veil shadowed her face, but I knew it was her. Her outline glowed faintly, as if lit from a candle I could not see. I staggered back, breath ragged, my knees knocked together. She did not move. She only watched. Her voice carried, low but clear. Confession is not escape. Confession is memory, memory that never dies. Behind me, Valentina began to weep again from the second booth. The sobs threaded through Catherine's words, echoing each syllable with pain. Then Jonah's laugh returned, low and jagged, weaving between them both. 3 voices now, one mourning, one mocking, one warning. I pressed my palms over my ears, but the sound poured through my skin, sinking into bone. My own voice joined them without meaning to. A whisper, a broken repetition of their words. No sin disappears, only sins that wait. The air tightened around me. The bulb flared white. For a single moment, the corridor dissolved. I was standing in the chapel again, a boy, knees against the wooden floor, staring up at Sister Catherine. Her eyes caught mine, calm, knowing, unforgiving. The chapel walls bled into the corridor walls. The wood beneath my knees became stone again. The voices fused together, rising, swirling until I could not separate them. Enrico, you killed, you lied, you betrayed. Catherine's figure stepped closer, though I had not seen her move. The bulb dimmed, leaving her veil darker, her outline sharper. Valentina's sobbing grew harsher, cracking like glass. Jonah's laughter tore higher, splitting into static. My chest heaved, my pulse hammered. I pressed my back into the cold wall, eyes darting from booth to booth, from shadow to shadow. Every slit looked wider, every booth darker. Catherine raised her hand, pale, thin but steady. She pointed toward the 6th door at the end of the hall. The bulb above sputtered. Sparks spat down. The rules on the stone pulsed faster, brighter, like they were alive, warning, screaming. Do not gaze through the slit of the 6th door. Her hand did not lower. Valentina's weeping turned into wails. Jonah's laugh warped into screams. The air cracked. The wood of the booths groaned, nails pulling free. Catherine's voice cut through them all, clear, steady, final. "Your confession is not over." The bulb burst, and the corridor drowned in black. The dark held me, thick as tar. My hands groped blindly, scraping the wall, searching for the slab of stone, for anything solid to keep me tethered. My breath came fast, shallow, echoing too loud in the suffocating black. Then wood groaned, a long, aching sound, deep enough to rattle the floor. The sixth booth. The sound grew, creak by creak, until I knew the door was opening. My chest froze. The rules seared my skull. Rule 4, do not gaze through the slit of the sixth door. But it was no longer a slit. It was opening. Slowly. The bulb stuttered back to life, throwing jagged light down the corridor. The other booths leaned silent and still, but the sixth stood wide. Its mouth yawning dark. Cold bled out from it, spilling across the floor in a rolling fog. The smell hit next. Iron, heavy and metallic, like a fresh wound that would never clot. I staggered back, but the corridor shifted. The floor tilted beneath me, pulling me forward, dragging me toward the open booth like a current. My nails scraped stone, my shoes slid useless against the wet floor. The light above hummed, faint and dying. And inside the darkness of the sixth booth, a figure sat, Federico. A priest's robes hung loose around him, black and rotting at the hems. His hands rested on his knees, fingers long and stiff, unmoving. But where his face should have been, there was nothing. No mouth, no eyes, no skin, only a smooth expanse, pale and blank, like plaster poured over bone. My lungs seized. The air shrank in my chest. My legs trembled so hard I thought they would give. The figure lifted its head. No features, yet somehow I felt it looking directly into me. My stomach knotted, my throat closed. The door behind me was gone, the exit swallowed by the corridor. There was no way back. The booths around me creaked, boards strained. From within, shadows shifted. I heard whispers now, confessions spilling all at once, dozens of voices layered, all speaking sins in broken tones, lies, theft, betrayal, murder, each word cut like glass. Federico rose. The motion was slow, deliberate, robes dragging against the floor with a whisper. He did not need eyes to see me. His faceless head tilted, and I felt the weight of judgment pressing down, crushing me into the stone. My knees buckled. I dropped hard, palms scraping the wet floor. The fog rolled over my skin, icy, clinging. I tried to speak, to pray, to repeat the rules, but my voice cracked to nothing. Then sound erupted. The booths slammed open, one after another, the thunder of wood against stone rattling my bones. Shadows spilled into the corridor, crawling out on hands and knees, some upright, some bent wrong, their mouths open in silent confession. I clawed backward, but every movement only dragged me closer to the sixth booth, closer to him. Federico stepped forward, blank face gleaming under the dim bulb. His hand lifted, thin, bony, and he stretched it toward me. The rules pulsed inside me. Obey, always obey. But there was no rule left for this, no law to protect me now. The shadows pressed closer, filling the corridor wall to wall. Their voices overlapped, a chorus of guilt. My own sins repeated back to me in their hollow tones. I tried to shut them out, but they poured through my skin, through my ears, through my blood. Federico stopped just before me. His hand hovered above my head, steady as stone. I dared not move. The air locked me in place. Then he lowered it. A weightless touch, yet my skull rang with it. My eyes slammed shut, and I heard my own voice, not spoken from my mouth, but from him, low, deep, echoing from the blank face. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. The bulb flickered once, twice, then burst. Darkness consumed everything. The hand pressed against my head was weightless, but it anchored me like stone. My knees locked, My breath stuck in my chest. Then his voice came. Not Federico's voice, my own. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." It rolled out of the faceless figure, low and echoing, bouncing down the corridor until the walls themselves whispered it back. My teeth ground together. I tried to move, to break free, but the weight of his touch bound me in place. My lungs screamed for air. The booth stirred. The shadows that spilled from them crawled closer. Their mouths moved, forming words I knew too well. My words, my past, every lie I had told, every betrayal, every secret. "You lied. You stole. You killed." The voices overlapped until they blurred into a storm of accusation. My ears rang. My chest felt like it was caving in. Federico tilted his faceless head. My voice poured from him again, softer this time, like confession. "I killed her." The words cut through the storm. Everything went silent. From the cracked floor beneath the sixth booth came a sound, wood splintering, stone groaning, something forcing its way out. The floor split. A pale arm clawed up from the dark, fingers stiff, nails torn. Then another. A figure dragged itself free, body twisted, skin gray and wet with blood. Abel. The name carved itself into me before I could think it. He rose on shaking legs, his chest torn open, his throat slashed wide. His eyes found mine, hollow, empty, yet burning with the weight of endless accusation. I tried to crawl backward, but the floor had become slick, wet, pulling me toward him instead. The smell of iron choked me. Abel opened his mouth. No sound came at first, only a dark gurgle, wet and broken. Then the sound shaped itself into words. "You killed me!" My stomach lurched. My hands slipped in the blood spreading across the stone. I shook my head, whispering no, but the word had no meaning here. The booths slammed open again, all six at once. Figures spilled out, crawling, dragging, stumbling forward. Their mouths poured with the same words over and over until the corridor drowned in them. "You killed, you killed, you killed." Abel staggered closer, each step heavy, leaving prints of blood that hissed against the stone. His chest gaped wider with every movement, ribs cracking open. His hand lifted, reaching for me. I clawed backward until my shoulders hit the cold wall, nowhere left to go. The rules burned in my head, but none spoke of this. None offered a way out. Federico stepped aside, faceless head still tilted. He watched, silent, as Abel's hand reached down toward me. The bulb above flickered wildly, then flared so bright it seared my eyes. For that instant, the corridor shattered. The stone split apart. The ceiling cracked open, showing not beams but black sky swirling with lightless clouds. Pages rained down, torn from books, fluttering with scripture written in blood. The booths stretched taller, their wooden frames splitting into jagged spires. The corridor was no longer a hall, but a cathedral twisted inside out. Abel's hand clamped onto my wrist. Ice surged through my arm, freezing marrow and vein. I screamed, trying to wrench free, but his grip tightened until bone ached. He leaned close. His face hovered inches from mine, hollow eyes drilling into me. His jaw dropped farther than it should, splitting the skin at the corners of his mouth. "You will confess," he gurgled, "or you will drown." Blood poured from his mouth, hot, metallic, splattering across my face. The shadows surged forward with him. Dozens of hands grabbed at my arms, my legs, pulling me down into the crack in the stone. The cathedral roared, the sound of splitting earth, the shriek of prayers turned inside out. Federico raised his hand. The noise silenced at once, though the shadows still clung to me. He lowered his faceless head again. My own voice spoke from him one last time, calm and final. "I confess." The floor gave way. The stone beneath me collapsed. I plunged down into the dark. The fall had no end. Stone, dust, shadow, all tore past me, swallowed in black. My scream died in my throat. The air froze, pressing against my chest until I thought my ribs would snap. Then I hit the ground, hard. The impact shattered breath from my lungs. I clawed at the dirt, coughing, gasping. When I opened my eyes, the corridor was gone. I lay on broken stone in a vast hollow, a cathedral without walls. The ceiling was skyless black. From that void, pages of scripture drifted down, thousands of them, each glowing faint with red. They turned slowly in the air before falling around me like ash. I pushed myself up, body trembling. My palms came away wet, blood, not mine. The ground itself bled between the cracks. The air shifted, heavy, sacred, and poisonous at once. A figure rose from the dark ahead, wings unfurled first, massive, broken, each feather frayed and burned at the tips. They dragged across the stone, sparking as they scraped. The body that carried them towered, bent with weight, halo cracked and burning above a head bowed low. Varsiel. The name branded itself into me the moment I saw him. He stepped forward. The ground shook. His face lifted into the faint glow of the raining pages, once angelic, now torn. Skin split by glowing veins, light spilling from the wound like molten fire. His eyes burned white, but the fire inside them flickered, unstable, a light that wanted to die but refused. I stumbled back. My legs barely obeyed. The pages brushed against my face as they fell, warm, wet, smeared with ink and blood. I looked at one as it stuck to my hand. The letters were my name, scrawled again and again in crimson. Enrico. I tore it away, heart hammering, but another drifted down and clung to my shoulder. Another pressed against my chest. Each page carried the same word, my name, written as scripture. My name turned into prayer. Varsiel raised his hands. Chains of light snapped into being, coiling down from the void, striking the stone. Each chain pulsed with scripture, words of judgment I could not understand but felt burning through my bones. He spread his wings, feathers tore free, burning as they fell, each one turning to ash before touching the ground. His mouth open, no words came, only a sound like thunder dragged across glass. The air split with it. My ears rang. I pressed my hands over them, but the sound still poured through. My skull shook. My eyes burned. The shadows on the floor writhed, forming shapes that clawed toward me. Varsiel stepped closer. His shadow stretched long, swallowing me whole. His firelight halo flared, cracking, sparks raining down, each spark landing on the pages scattered around me. They ignited. The ground erupted with flame, red, white, screaming. The pages curled into smoke, releasing more of my name into the air. My name burned into the fire until it roared louder than my pulse. Lucian's eyes flashed in the flames, faint, distant, reflected in every spark. His grin widened. Varsiel leaned down, his face lowered to mine, close enough for me to feel the heat of his broken breath. His eyes blazed, burning holes into me. I tried to speak. No prayer left my lips, only one sound, a broken gasp, my name crumbling into the air. Enrico! His wings snapped open. The blast of wind hurled me back, slamming me against the stone. Pain cracked through my ribs. I gasped, vision swimming. He raised one hand. Chains of light coiled around his arm, glowing brighter, searing. He pointed toward me. The chains struck the ground, erupting in a shock wave of white flame. The stone split beneath me, fissures crawling outward like veins. More pages spilled through the cracks, soaked in blood. Abel's voice gurgled faintly from below, crying through the fractures, his hollow words joining the storm. "You killed!" I screamed back, but the sound was lost in the roar of the collapsing cathedral. Varsiel's halo blazed once more, split down the middle, and shattered. The light bled out into the void above, filling it with burning ash. His body trembled with rage or sorrow. I could not tell which. Then his voice came, low, broken, shaking the hollow. Confess! My body shook. My throat was raw, scraped by every breath. I forced the words out, trembling. I confess. The ground split wide. From the crack rose the stone slab of rules, jagged and smoking, glowing with fire from within. Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4. The letters seared, alive, waiting. Federico stood behind it now, faceless, hands resting on the stone. My own voice poured from him, calm, steady. Write it. A quill appeared in my hand, not feather, not wood, bone, the point sharp as a blade. My hand moved without will, trembling, scratching against the air. A book lay open before me, a Bible, its cover soaked in dark stains, its pages half burned. The open sheet glowed faint and white, waiting for the stroke. I tried to drop the quill, but my fingers clenched tighter. My wrist bent, dragged by force I could not see. My skin split where I gripped, blood slicking the bone pen. The first letter tore across the page, written in red. My red. Rule 5. My chest heaved, my vision blurred. Lucian's grin flickered in every shadow. His reflection stared from every flame, urging me on, teeth gleaming. The quill carved deeper, words scraped into the page. My hand shook with each letter, but they formed all the same. If you read this, the next watch is yours. The sentence burned, glowing bright as the blood sank into paper. Valentina's sobs rose from the second booth, though the booth was not here. Jonah's laugh split through the air, though he was nowhere to be seen. Abel's hollow voice gurgled from the cracks. All of them together, binding me in sound. Federico stepped closer, his faceless head bent toward the page. My own voice poured from him again, satisfied. It is written. The Bible slammed shut. Dust and ash burst from it. The stone slab behind him cracked, the rules splitting down the middle. Varciel lowered his head. His white eyes blazed once more. His wings folded, feathers burning to nothing. He pointed at me with a hand cracked by light, chains wrapped around my arms, binding me to the book. My blood seeped through the pages, dripping to the stone, each drop hissing like fire. I lifted my head. My vision swam with red and white. My heart hammered until I thought it would burst. In the flames, Lucian leaned closer. His grin widened, his mouth moved, shaping words that reached me without sound. Now you tell them. The chains loosened. The book lay open before me again, the fresh words glowing, etched in my blood. Rule 5. If you read this, the next watch is yours. The voices fell silent. The hollow held nothing but my breath, ragged and broken. I reached for the book. My hand shook as I touched the page. The words pulsed faintly, alive, waiting to be read. I lifted my head again. The shadows leaned close as if listening. The flames flickered in rhythm with my breath. My reflection glimmered faintly in the blood on the page. Lucian still smiled inside my eyes. And I spoke, not to the booth, not to the stone, not to the angel, but to the dark itself. I'm only telling this to whoever comes next. The book snapped shut. The void swallowed the sound. Darkness fell.